Hi everybody. So this month for my December reading, I'm going to try to do my videos as I read. I think this is easier for me in that the books are fresher when I go to do my videos, and so that way at the end of the month I'm not trying to like remember things necessarily. But so far December is off to a good start. I've read 4 books so far, so I'm going to just recap those real quick here, which will probably go up in January because I tend to read down to the wire. Now that I'm on BookTube, I need to kind of evaluate what I want my reading year to look like. I know some people do December to November as a year, so I would technically be starting my 2023 reading now. That way in December of 2023, I could do a bunch of wrap-ups, but I don't like that because that's just, it feels weird. So I think I want to do like legit 2022, 2023 reading, etc. We'll see. Very new to BookTube still. I can do what I want, so we'll see. But anyways, like I said, I have read 4 books so far this month, and so far it's been we got out of the hospital on the 29th, I believe. And so a lot of my reading has been catching up books that I meant to finish in November, but because we were in the hospital with my son, I didn't read. So the very first book I have finished so far is And Yet by Kate Baer. I love her. I think everybody should read her. She's just such a phenomenal poet. There is a poem in here I wish I had tagged. It's called Burnout. I did not, will not, could not know what it is to be a good mother when mother is already heavy enough. She's so brilliant. I have sent that poem to so many of my mom friends and who've all just been like, yes. And why I like Kate Baer is she talks about motherhood in such a real way. You're going to hear one of my dogs because he thinks it's time to be fed. She talks about motherhood in such a way that's just incredible and real and raw. It doesn't glorify it. It meets us in the ugliness, but she also talks about being a woman and how like society is so over the top on what they expect out of women and not the same standards for men. And she's just such a good poet. I want everybody to read her. And then I flew through Lore Olympus Volume 2. This is the second installment. There will be, I know there's the 4th is coming out, I think late 2023. And the newest, the 3rd, I think just came out. I just really love the art in here, the colors. It's, I think, slow burn, I guess I would classify it. It is a graphic novel, but right now Hades and Persephone both like each other, but they don't want to admit that they like each other. And this is a modern retelling of that story. It's very clever. The graphics are really well. There's content warnings. I love the pink and blue color scheme. I do think Persephone is kind of portrayed as not the best of what women can be. And I don't know if that's intentional, and like she'll come, I'm sure it will get better as we go, but she's just kind of deer in headlights all the time. And I'm really hoping that gets better. I think that's an intentional idea for the author right now, and it should resolve, I think, as Persephone steps into her own. All that being said, so great. And then I've read 2 books on my Kindle. I read The Naughty or Nice Clause by Kate Callaghan, and it was a cute little Christmas novel. This girl, Lila, is co-owners of her family's company with a guy who stepped in to buy out her father's shares because the company needed like help to be fixed. That person's name is Mason Claus. She hosts a holiday party that he doesn't want her to host because the company doesn't have money, but she does it for morale. Something goes wrong. He steps in to fix things as he always does, but then goes, hey, I fixed this for you, so you need to come home with me for the holidays. My dad just died, and you would be a welcome distraction, so nobody would focus on me. They'd focus on the fact that I brought a girl home. So it's kind of this like relationship of convenience trope. And he lives in the North Pole. You can imagine he's Santa Claus. What I loved about this is it is very clever world building. It's for a romance novel. They can't do a lot, right? It's a romance novel. For a standalone romance novel, even more so. But I feel like the world building of the North Pole and kind of the magic, it works for as short of an amount of pages the author had to work with. I did not love the relationship. This relationship was like really fast and there wasn't enough of it in my opinion. So I didn't necessarily like believe the love because I felt like it needed more fleshed out. But all in all, this was a super enjoyable romance. Really liked it. And then I also finished The Ingenue or Ingenue, Ingenue by Rachel Kapelke Dale. She wrote The Ballerinas. That came out a year or 2 ago. Whew. Okay, so that came out a year or 2 ago, and This is a pretty literary novel, and the main character, Saskia, is a child prodigy pianist, and so you kind of know that right from the beginning. And her mother dies, so she comes home to her house, and they live in Milwaukee. They live in like this huge, those big, beautiful houses that are like old and from the 30s, you know. The family custom is that the house always goes to the surviving females of the family. And in her mother's will, she gifts it to this guy who happens to be Saskia's groomer and who sexually abused her as a teenager. But Saskia was like in love with him at the time. And, you know, I mean, a very fraught, unhealthy dynamic, but she was a teenager. So this is a Me Too novel. And the book is unwinding why the mom left the house to this man. And Saskia's like, well, does she know about this relationship or what? And so it's kind of a look at mothers and daughters, but overall, just a really great look at Me Too, and kind of like, as it's a good look at like what a victim might have perceived her abuser as, and then how you grow up having this in your past. This main character is coming to terms with that and what it looks like for her life and why her mom chose to give this house to her abuser. And it ends in what I think was a really good ending. I actually really enjoyed this. It is a very slow book, so it did take a while. I would say the last like 10% is where most of that quote unquote action happens. But all in all, a very, very good book. And I think it's getting hyped in certain places, and I think it deserves it. So I really enjoyed The Ingenue, and I think that might be one of the better books I read this month, like quality literary wise. So I'm just excited to see what else this month brings, but that's what I got for now, and I'll chime in when I have the next book. Okay, so I'm editing my December wrap up, and one of my videos just doesn't want to load, and it's driving me crazy. So I'm quickly going to review these next 3 books, and then I will post this. Dear Lord, it's driving me nuts. Okay, so I read A Very Merry Bromance, which was the 5th and final installment of the True Bromance Book Club series. There's going to be another book that's based on one of the historical novels that is in the books, but it was such a fun one. I really liked it. It's definitely one of my more favorite ones in the series, but this one is about Gretchen and Colton, the country music star. She's an immigration attorney. She has a crappy family, and she doesn't like Christmas because her rich family never really like treated her as she should or experienced Christmas in the way a normal family would. And he is all about Christmas. And so it's just a really cute romance. After the Last Border is another book that I read with my church book club. And we're actually launching an immigration nonprofit through our church where we're going to help people become citizens and provide legal services for that. So I'm really excited. This book is about 2 refugees from Syria and Myanmar and their experience becoming refugees in the United States. And it interweaves U.S. policy through the chapters. So it's super interesting, really up my alley, especially for my heart for immigration law and also for just some of my interests. And then the final book in this series that I'll be talking about is Your Table is Ready, Tales of a New York City Maitre d' by Michael Cecchi Azzolina. And this is one of the more hyped memoirs of the year, but it would be the front of the house version of Kitchen Confidential if you've read that. Same grit, same sex, same drugs, like very much in that realm, but this was just better written in my opinion, and I was way more interested in this than Kitchen Confidential. So chapters are super short, so it was easy to read and like set down and pick up and stuff because it was just what I needed at the time. But if you're looking for a good food memoir, I would recommend Your Table is Ready for a different twist on a food memoir. It was very enjoyable, and I want to thank St. Martin's Press for sending me a copy to review. So, okay, I'm going to upload this, and then you'll get the rest of my books. Good Lord. Bye. So then up next is The Storied Life of AJ Fikry. I grabbed this on NetGalley because it was there for review. Even though it's been out since 2014, I think they resurfaced it due to the movie coming out, which I have not watched. I've read Gabriella Zevin's previous work, Young Jane Young, and I really liked it. I have not read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, but I would like to read that either this month or next month. I really like Gabriella Zevin, and she's a really good writer. She writes quirkiness and reality really well, and she really balances grief and humor. And I think that is something I'm really drawn to. AJ Fikry has lost his wife, and his wife's dream was to open up a bookstore. And so he keeps this bookstore running in her stead. And It's very much a book of found family, and there's a adoption storyline, which problematic, but I could overlook it for this book. I'm pretty sensitive to adoption storylines in my books just from my own personal experiences, so it was handled okay. I don't know if DHS would work the way they worked in that book, but anyways, it was just really quirky and cute, and I now want to watch the movie. It's on Hulu or Amazon Prime, so I will have to check that out. I read 2 novellas, and it was The Hangman by Louise Penny. Since there's a Amazon Prime series right now, I wanted to read that because there is 2 episodes on that novella. In this series, they're skipping the first book and they're just doing 2, 3, 4, and then The Hangman, which is a novella, and it was okay. Didn't really add much to the universe, very much a novella. It was written for, I believe, people with intellectual disabilities as a way to raise money. So it was just a novella, short and sweet. Read it in like one sitting, pretty middle of the road, nothing I can remember, so it wasn't super spectacular. And then I read Foster by Claire Keegan, and I talked about this in another video, but I really, really liked this. It's just a very short and sweet novel about a little girl who essentially goes into foster care, but not really. Like, her parents can't keep up with her because they're having a little baby, and so she goes to stay with another family in the countryside in Ireland, and for the first time she feels seen and loved and heard, and it's just really beautiful. Very short, very sweet. It was one of UK best 50 books of all time, I believe. So definitely recommend if you're looking for a super short novella that packs a punch. And then I participated in a buddy read with some friends, and we read The Last Party by Claire McIntosh. Also talked about this in previous videos, but it was just pretty middle of the road for a thriller. It took about half of the book to really pick up, and then it really, really picked up. Again, adoption storyline that I didn't really love, but it worked for the story, I guess. I'm just very not into those storylines, I guess. And then finally, I read a review copy from Avon Books, like another publisher I partner with, and that was In Her Highlander's Bed by Lindsay Sand. And this is just kind of a typical romance novel. The main character is trying to escape a marriage to a bad guy, so she's running away. He kind of kidnaps her and beats her up, and then she passes out and is saved by another Highlander. He nurses her back to health, but like has a whole family that's hilarious, and they fall in love, of course, because it is a romance novel. So what would you expect? And then, yeah, pretty good. I do like Lindsay Sand a lot, so we'll probably keep reading in that series if more books are written, which I'm sure there will be. So that was my December. Pretty good, pretty light reading, honestly, which is exactly what I needed this month. So who knows what January will bring. I usually read a little more depth in January, so it'll be interesting to see. But if you read any of those, I would like to hear your thoughts in the comments, and otherwise be sure to like, comment, and subscribe and help me grow my channel. I so appreciate you. Bye.